To order for the regular meeting of the North Adams City Council for July 25th, 2023. Not that anyone else listens to me anyway. This meeting is being recorded. Will the clerk please take a roll?
Barbo?
Here.
Bona?
Here.
Harpin?
Here.
Obasahan? Alaskowitz?
Here.
Sapienza?
Here.
Shade?
Here.
Wilkinson?
Here.
Blackmare?
Here. 8 present, we have a quorum. Please rise for a moment of silence remembrance. And the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Hearing of visitors on agenda items. This is an opportunity for the public to speak to the council for 2 minutes regarding items that are listed on the agenda. Please go to the mic, name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
I'm Robert Smith, and I live on 163 North Street. I just want to make a comment on agenda item 12285. This is in conjunction with our current city clerk wanting to get a vote on an assistant clerk, and I'm wholeheartedly in favor of it. It'll put us back to where we need to be if she would have help in the office. And we can go forward from there, and hopefully this will be something that will remain for a while. So I wholeheartedly think that's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, then let's move on to the agenda. Okay. Council Paper 12,274, communication from Councilor Sapienza to propose amendment to Article 35, Chapter 2, edited Public Arts, Section 2-173A, definitions public arts, to insert the words interior or exterior between any and work as approved by the Commissioners at the Public Arts Commission at their April 24th, 2023 meeting, and referred to General Government. Do we have an update from General Government or from Councilor Sapienza?
I have no update at this time. It was standing in general government at this point, and has it, through the chair to Councilor Wilkinson, has it been vetted yet through the general government?
It has not, because it was such a small change. We were hoping to piggyback it with something else. It's been difficult to get everybody there for one reason or another, different schedules. But obviously, it's gone on too long, and I will schedule a special meeting to deal with this one subject.
Okay, thank you.
So a motion to postpone.
Yeah, motion to postpone the first meeting of September.
Not a problem.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Councilor Shade.
Well, I understand wanting to have proposed ordinance changes go through a committee. The language here is so simple that I think we could just all agree to vote on it now without it needing to go through committee. Thank you.
I would always question and send it to general government, because particularly this Arts Commission, its creation was relatively not that long ago compared to other things we've done in our city ordinance, and this is what, the fourth or fifth change to the ordinance? So I think I would prefer it to just go to committee, but that's up to you guys when you, up to the rest of us when we vote. Any other comments? So the motion is to continue till September, first meeting in September, and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Counselor Shade opposed. Motion carries. Council Paper 6150-2, a communication from Mayor Maxey, from Council Paper Mayor's Communication number 68, Airport Commission configuration, requesting an amendment to Chapter 2, Article 19, Section 2-108, entitled Establishment, Composition, Qualifications of Revised Ordinance to mirror MGL Part 1, Title 15, Chapter 90, Section 51E. Mayor?
Basically, the communication speaks for itself. We're just trying to align this ordinance with what MGL says, and that reference would be that of the members appointed, at least one shall be a person having experience in aeronautics. Our ordinance currently asks for 2. We were hoping that we could get this change, and you are welcome to refer it to whatever committee that you want, mostly probably general government, just so it would be easier to fill the committee.
So our options on this,
And
okay, oh,
if-
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead and make your motion.
Could I
Yep.
add one more thing? The most confusing part about this ordinance is if you go online, it's not accurately spelt out. So that is a problem with a lot of the things that we're putting forward. Looping back to some of the finance committee changes, we really need to get our general code up to date. It's confusing for us internally, and it's confusing for the outside who's trying to get information from us. So that maybe could be something that we add to the agenda to look for an update on that.
Okay.
For general code, we just submitted 13 items
Okay,
to be uploaded.
so we'll do that after.
I would make a motion to approve.
Okay, what I was going to suggest is we file the communication and move on to the actual ordinance. Is the ordinance in here?
Yes?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I thought it was, but
Okay.
when I looked at it, it was not coming. Any other discussion? So without objection, I'll file a communication and move on to the actual ordinance. So Council Paper 11,790 wait a minute. Oh, there's not 2 of them. Oh, there is, sorry. Okay, so Council Paper 6150-2, an ordinance amending Chapter 2 Administration, Article 19, Airport Commission, Section 2-108, Establishment, Composition, Qualifications of the Revised Ordinance to mirror MGL Part 1, Title 14, Chapter 90, Section 51E. So the motion would be to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Counselor Wilkinson.
I have a question. My question is, we were just discussing, since it's a change in ordinance, sending it to general government, now we're going to skip that?
You can have it if you'd like.
Well, I don't mind, it's just, the initial discussion was to send it to general government, because it was a change in ordinance, and now all of a sudden the motion is to pass to a second reading tonight.
Partially is because it's to make it mirror state law.
No, I understand that, but the problem from the way I remember it was, the Airport Commission wanted 2, because they thought that it was important that they had at least 2 on there, and they worked very hard to get 2, and now, without consulting them,
No, that's not true. I'm sorry, Counselor.
no, any input is fine.
So-
I'm just saying that it was controversial in the beginning, and unless that's been resolved, unless it's been referred back to the Airport Commission.
This came to my desk as a recommendation through the airport commission through our administrative officer, because we're trying to fill seats.
I understand that. If I can ask, how many pilots do you have on the airport commission presently?
One.
Mr. Grandchamp?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Nobody else has stepped forward with all the,
Not anyone who doesn't have ties to the airport.
I see. Again, all I know is that the airport commission, this was very, they had a strong feeling on this. If they have come forward and said they no longer have a strong feeling on this, or they're just giving up with the fact that they can't get anybody and they just, as you say, filling seats, I think this should, if this is a change in ordinance, it should go to general government, because I'm not satisfied with just passing it to a second reading and moving on.
Counselor Barrow.
Yeah, if I could follow up to Councilor Wilkinson, you're correct. This was a very big and drawn-out ordinance change. And I believe this part of the context is missing here for me. And the reason for that change of 2 was that we were going to allow 1 from being out of town.
Yes.
That was the big change, and I don't see where that's reflected here. The Master General Law is 1, but the reason for the change was so it would open up opportunities to bring in someone from a surrounding town, and I think that's been left out of here.
And if I could follow up, please. And the reason, if I remember correctly, was because at the time the airport was undergoing renovations, and a lot of people or a lot of pilots from Bennington, we were up in Bennington, I guess that's what it was. They were thought maybe joining of the 2 would be a good idea. I guess, but that's ancient history now, because the airport's up and running again. I don't know, I still have questions. I'd like to see it go to general government, but that's not what's on the table right now.
Counselor Harpen, then Counselor Bona.
Thank you. Doing my homework, I am looking up all these ordinances for the ordinance changes. And if you're an average citizen or an average Joe, someone from out of town, in town, work for the city, not work for the city, a city councilor, a commission member, whoever you may be, in these days and times, you would look online. And you would look at the city ordinance online, because that's what people do now. We have computers. So when I look online, I look at this section, and it says establishment, composition, and qualification. The Airport Commission is hereby established and shall consist of 5 members who shall be residents of the city, period. That's what is out there. So anybody looking at this without any knowledge, taking the agenda and the information, you would go, what are you talking about? So if you didn't know that we had a previous ordinance, you would never know what Councilor Wilkinson and Councilor Barbeau are referring to, because the information is not provided to the public. So my question is, do we keep moving these ordinances forward, or do we fix what it has already been completed online? I had the conversation before the meeting with the mayor, because I'm concerned. This isn't the only one. People within the community and people outside the community, the short-term rentals, it's not on there. So if people are coming into the city and possibly looking to run a short-term rental, how would they know what our ordinance is? Because right now, there's nothing there. So my concern, again, I will say, I just go ahead and do this, because what's on there right now, it doesn't even show what happened a year ago, right? We have a new administration. We have a new airport commissioner and chair of the commission. So if this is what they're looking to do, maybe we can do this and do it correctly and post it correctly, so that the people in our community knows what's going on in our city government. So that's why I would say, let's go ahead and do it, because we need to start posting things. We need to start communicating to our community members and people, who are looking to move here or invest here. So I would say, yes, go, if that's what the Airport Commission is looking for, and this is what our mayor, the administrator of the city is looking for, I say, let's do it.
So my question on that, one, the clerk just said that there are 13 ordinances that she sent to something 360, general code, to update. Secondly, I also, as someone who does a lot of research on other communities on a pretty regular basis, I look at code, but I also look at Google, and if I wanted to check a town's Airbnb rules, I would Google it and read their minutes and read their discussions and their news articles about it, because I think sometimes things are not up to date, and there's always, ways to look up that information. I do agree with it being current. I don't think a few weeks is going to make that much of a difference. I do know there was a lot of discussion on this, and part of the reason we also opened it up to somebody else outside of this, somebody in an adjoining community, was to get more people involved. And also, if somebody lived in another town, they might also have fewer ties to the airport. I think that's been the issue, Mayor. And I'd said aeronautical. That doesn't mean they have to be able to fly the plane. They can be a mechanic. They can have some experience with aeronautics, whether it's designing, managing, piloting, fixing. I also know that it's hard to get people together in the summer for committee meetings with everybody's schedule. So let's see what Councilor Bona has to say.
Yeah, I would like to see it go to committee. The mayor did say at the beginning if we wish to have it go to committee. General government, you just said you need some more things on your agenda to pursue, so here's one there.
Here's a slip of the tongue.
And I, because there has been some tension over at the airport, I would not like anyone to come forward and say that, we just tried to push this through. Not that it's anything that seems like it should be too controversial, but it gives them one more opportunity if people want to come forward. And it would also be nice to have the administrative assistant who is direct contact with the airport if they're.
Administrative officer.
Administrative officer, to answer any questions that may come up. And typically, ordinance changes have gone, as this first one did, no matter how small it might be, does go back to general government. So I would support it going to general government and hopefully coming back with a quick answer to resolve.
Councilor Sapienza.
Yes, I concur with Councilor Bona. I would like to see this go through general government. As Councilor Harpen mentioned, there were several inadequacies in our code, was it E360 or whatever they call it, on the online service. I found that out recently when researching the taxi ordinance that we're currently revising. There were sections that were taken out but were never taken out of the online version. And I do want to thank the city clerk's office for pointing that out at one point in time during the process. So, and the new revision does reflect that section being removed.
Councilor Harpen.
Yes. I will mention, if you look up the E-code, and I want to thank the new clerk, thank you very much, because there is a section in here that says new laws, and there's 13 items in there. So that must be what you're referring to, right? So these new laws run from February of 2020, that they were adopted, through November of 2021. So again, we still have quite a bit to do in here. And I think that it's important that we make that a priority. So again, I'm concerned about the people in our community and the people coming here looking to see what our ordinances is. This, you can look in a news article, but this is a reflection of the city ordinance. That's what this is. This is our city ordinances. So right now, they're not fully correct. So I think it should be a priority for us to update them. And as we're entering in new ordinances or ordinance changes, instead of just keep piling them up, I think we need to be aware of this. So to me, we've had the fees on the agenda for 4 years. So we postponed, we sent it to general government. General government's on vacation, or they couldn't meet, or someone couldn't make it, we postpone again. This is fairly simple. I'm going to agree with Counselor Shade. When do we start taking action? We were elected as counselors and decision makers of the city. When are we going to start making decisions? This is easy. The mayor just said, it was referred to her from the committee, the commission. This is what they were looking for. She is the administrator. She's the mayor of the city. She's asking us to pass this, and we're going to send it to committee and postpone it again, along with everything else that we postpone. So I'm sorry, it's just very, very frustrating. It just seems everything that comes on this agenda is postponed. Fees have been postponed for 4 years. It's very frustrating.
Yes, we've got that. Counselor Shade.
Thank you, Counselor Harpen.
The previous ordinance was just language. It was adding very simple words. This is changing the operation of the actual commission. So I do think it should be looked at a little deeper, not just simplifying or changing some languages and definitions. This should be looked at a little deeper to make sure that we're doing it properly and that everybody's, we do our due diligence. Not that the administration hasn't done theirs, but we have to do ours as well. So for this one, I would actually say it should go to committee. With that said, I will agree with Councillor Harpen that we need to have a more defined process on how our ordinances get updated online, what that process is, and we should have some kind of understanding of how that happens. I don't think that's defined enough for our liking, for the community's liking. People do have a right to know what their laws are. Everybody needs to know what the laws are in the community so that they can follow them. Otherwise, we can't expect people to follow the law if they don't know what they are. I think that's something that needs to be worked on. It's a separate issue to me than the airport commission, but because we're talking about ordinances, we do need to redefine that in a different way. We need to come up with a better system. We need to figure that out with this 360 program company that we work with. We need to define that better. It needs to be something separate than the airport commission. But for this airport commission question, I think it should go to committee because we're changing the operation on how it actually functions, not just updating some simple language. So in this case, I would recommend it going back to committee first for review.
Okay, I would also like to clarify, with all due respect to the mayor and being the administrator, the ordinances are the product
Of the city council.
of the city council. We are the legislative body. So one, I guess it would have been, Mayor, it would have been helpful if you would actually attach their recommendation with that. But also, if they want something changed and they're sending it to you, they could courtesy copy the clerk so that we would be aware of it. And so I'm actually going to agree with those who are saying that general government should have it. But I would also ask if Administrative Officer Eid could be at that meeting if possible.
Absolutely.
But also if maybe Mr.
Morandi.
could possibly attend to and talk and explain it.
As you'll see in our administration, when we do refer things to committee, my staff is generally present.
It has been, and no, I agree, and that's been the case, and I just
Not
know
myself.
sometimes it's hard to schedule people. And Councilor Harpen.
I just want to make one more point, or 2 more points, I'm sorry. This is following Mass General Law. So as far as making sure that it's okay, or, whether it's in regulations or whatever, she is mimicking the Mass General Law. So, and secondly, I know that we are legislative body. You are absolutely correct. And I know that we are the ones that create the ordinances or approve the ordinances. However, the mayor has been quite involved in many ordinances, including the short-term rentals, the fees. A lot of them are referred to the mayor. So she is involved in some way in the ordinances as well.
I agree. I also want to clarify, Mass General Law says we have to have one, at least one. We can have a more stringent policy. It is up to our community to decide what works for best for us, and I think that's a discussion for the Airport Commission and the general government. And obviously, how many people do we have on the Airport Commission right now?
4,
How many are supposed to be?
5.
5, that's what I thought.
believe, yes.
So we do have a quorum now.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, well, I know there was a period of time where that was an issue, so.
We've worked very hard to get.
I know you
people on
have.
the committee.
And I know you've worked really hard to be inclusive in the community, to engage more people who might not have been previously involved in government in our community, and I think that's great. So I want to commend that, but I personally, I guess I'm going to. So we had a motion, I suggested a motion to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law.
I actually am the one that did it.
You
Cass
did it.
said so
You
moved.
said so,
And
okay.
I'm going to keep that motion in place.
Okay, well, also my question, knowing that we have a meeting in 2 weeks, this is not is this one of those months where we jump or no?
We
No.
go on the 20,
Yeah, 20, so we're not having, so my point is that.
August 5th.
I know that Counselor Wilkinson is away for the next, pretty much, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that publicly. I don't know if the committee is not
Just
going
a
to be able to
couple
meet.
days.
So we have a motion to pass to a second reading and publish as required by law,
We had a second, I thought.
did.
and we had a second, so, and Counselor Harpen is keeping that motion on the table. Aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, so then we will vote on that motion, and I'm asking for a roll call.
Barbo,
Yes.
Bona,
No.
I couldn't hear you.
I couldn't hear you.
I couldn't hear you. No? Harpen,
Yes.
Alaskowitz?
Yes.
Sapienza,
No.
Shade,
No.
Wilkinson?
No.
Blackmer, no.
Oh, Blackner, sorry. No.
Motion fails. Do we have a second, do we have another motion?
I move that we refer this to general government.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Counselor Bona. Counselor Shade.
Can we do that with a due back date, please?
Sure.
Back.
The first month of September.
I'm sorry?
What about the first
Do you want to do it at
meeting?
the same time as the other one?
First meeting in September, sure.
It gives you a month. Should be able to herd cats in that amount of time. You should be able to herd cats in that amount of time.
Herd cats?
Yeah.
Yeah. You do first week in September?
Yeah.
Or it doesn't have to go out that far.
Well, the other one's out that far. Do you want
Sure, keep it, no.
to, do you want them the second week? Do you want it the second meeting? in-
I thought there was some urgency, so that seems to be far off, but first meeting in September is fine if it's not going to hurt the airport commission.
According to the mayor, it will not hurt the airport commission.
No, then
We had a committee sit almost empty, and now we're worried about another 30 days.
And-
It's fine.
I have no issue with that.
So we have a motion and a second, and we'll do a roll call again.
Barbo,
No.
Bona,
Yes.
Harpen,
No.
Alaskowitz?
No.
Sapienza,
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmer?
Yes. Motion carries. Council Paper 11,790-3, a communication from Mayor Maxey, number 69, short-term rental fees, requesting an amendment to Chapter 3 Building Code, Section 3-50.3, entitled Taxes, Fees, and Penalties. Without objection, I'll file the mayor's communication. Mayor?
Similar to what we discussed, if you look online, 3-50.3 doesn't exist. However, when the ordinance was put through and the documentation that is in the city clerk's office, no fee was assigned. I will say to you that our recommendation of $500 is just a recommendation. If you do decide to refer this to committee, we've done some research on other communities about their fee structure, and what I'm looking for is a fee so we can start doing our inspections and assessing the annual fee. So I'm looking for some guidance from the council, but the original ordinance didn't include a fee, and we looked at it several times, and I, for some reason, thought that it was on the floor before, but it apparently wasn't.
Oh, so I will comment that I know that Administrative Officer Eads sent out something to the Berkshire Managers Group and has been getting different responses. I'm on that group, that's, so it's
So
kind of,
we did do some legwork. for
it's
the
like all over the place on it.
Yeah, so we did do some legwork for the committee, if that's the route that the body wants to go, which I'm assuming it is.
So the question is, does it go to general government because it's an ordinance? Or
Hey,
does
that's
it
your
go
job.
to- Or does it go to finance because it's a fee?
Or how about we have a joint meeting?
Yeah.
And get it over with?
I would recommend they go to general government because they've already done so much discussion on this particular ordinance.
This
That
is
would just
true.
be my,
That goes back more than 4 years.
but
Okay.
we're still on the communication?
We're still on the communication. So we'll move on to the actual paper. Council Paper 11,790-3, an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Building Codes, Section 30-50.3, entitled Taxes, Fees, and Penalties. What is the council's
I
pleasure?
make a motion that it goes to general government with a return date of the first meeting of September.
Second?
Discussion, Councilor Harpin.
Yes, just for a point of reference through the chair to the mayor, or possibly the inspection service director. What is our fee now for a long-term rental? When they would do an inspection, if someone leaves an apartment
The
and it
certificate of
needs to be
occupancy?
inspected, is it comparable to $500? How much is the long-term rental inspections?
No, it's not. It's-
Microphone for the people at home.
Sorry. So there are two different things. This is a new, obviously, a new venture for the city and really for the Commonwealth to figure this out. That number that's out there, that 500, was a suggestion. It's a business. We're treating it like a business. Your rental apartment, a certificate of compliance is $30. The inspector goes out, does that initial inspection for $30.
Okay. And just a quick question. Is it much different for a short-term rental to a long-term rental?
This is, well, yes and no. So this is including the registration that the city wants and the renewal of that registration and the inspection. So you'd have to break it down however much you think the registration is worth for the city and deduct out the inspection portion of it.
Okay, because this
But I will
is
say
both.
that $30, right, this is both.
Well, this has
proposed.
500 for the registration and 500 for the inspection, so it would be 500 just for the inspection, is how it's written in here.
I think it's is it not written that it's for the renewal and inspection?
It says pay a fee of 500 for the initial registration and inspection and fee
Right.
of 500 for annual renewal and inspection. Okay. Okay, so originally to register, it's 500, and then the second year, it's,
And it's inspected, and then the second year, it's renewed and inspected again.
okay.
For
That's
that fee.
confusing. Okay, so that's, I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you. Yeah.
Counselor Shade and then Counselor Wilkinson. Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Okay, I'm sorry. Counselor Wilkinson.
Well, now, that clarified a couple things. I don't think the annual inspection should certainly be $500, where the long-term rental is much, much lower. I have no problems with the initial registration of the short-term rentals as being even higher than $500. To be quite honest with you, in my everyday part of my job, these guys are making a ton of money. There's no question about it. It's the cost of doing business. I don't think 500 annually is I think that's way too high. There should be a lower amount for an annual inspection, but you want to initiate a business in North Adams, 500 should be minimal, and more than happy to take this on in general government.
Counselor Sapienza and then Counselor Barrow.
Yes, in respect to the amount of the fees, whether or not the initial fee of $500 is high or low, depending on what side of the fence you're on this, I wouldn't like to see the fee as so high as to restrict the growth of short-term rentals, but I also see the utility in having such a fee because we have to pay the inspector to go out and look at these. We have to pay for the inspection, the registration process. Having an annual fee of $500, I think that's high. I would like to see a higher initial fee and then a lower annual fee that remains constant as the short-term rental ages. And I think that would be a more equitable solution. Thank you.
Counselor Barbo?
Sure, thank you. When this originally came on the floor to vote for the short-term rental, I did specifically ask if we had fees set up, and I was very clearly stated that that was not our responsibility to set those fees. So I just would like to clarify that here this evening. Secondly, I'd like to know what other industry or business we are attaching a fee of $500 or above. This seems excessive to me, and I'm not sure blackballing short-term rentals with a fee this high. I've run multiple businesses in this city. I've never seen a fee like this attached to any other business. I'm not up to date on the fees and fines. Obviously, we haven't seen those, but if somebody could share with me what other industry we're charging this kind of registration and annual inspection for.
Liquor license. Liquor license is the only thing comparable, and they're higher than that
$1,700 for liquor.
for full liquor. Counselor Herpin?
Yeah, just one more issue here. I think it would be equitable, as Counselor Sapienza said, and also comparable to have the same fee as a long-term rental, because you know what, Counselor Wilkinson, it's also a business, and people are making money off of long-term rentals. So if a long-term rental gets an inspection for $35, it's really difficult, for me anyways, to vote for anything much higher for a short-term rental. They're both businesses.
Follow up?
Follow up, and then I have one more comment.
I agree with Councilor Harpen on that. You were comparing apples and oranges, only from the point of view that the $30 or whatever they mentioned a few minutes ago was an annual inspection for long-term rentals, and maybe, I just think it's apples and oranges. I understand where you're coming from, certainly, but it's apple. We've worked with this in general government for years and years, and I guess unless somebody convinces me otherwise, it's apples and oranges.
Counselor Shade, and then Mr. Moranti. You just got promoted or demoted, I'm not sure which.
Demoted, I think.
So if we're treating short-term rentals like a business, which it is, shouldn't this also be reviewed by the planning board?
It already is.
The fee?
No, they don't have to. They don't review the fees. When the planning board makes sure that it meets all the legal guidelines as far as space, parking, signage, setbacks, and all the other stuff that we look at. But they don't really have anything to do with the fees. The fees are set by us unless it's something specific to zoning, at which point then I'm trying to remember the last time we approved anything like that. I don't think we have. Mr. Moranti, maybe you can clarify.
Well, again, I'm sure that this will get discussed in general government, but just a little bit of clarification. That $30 fee is every time a tenant moves in or out. And if we did that and applied that same logic to a Airbnb, we'd be there every week. They'd be paying $30 every week or every weekend, or whatever it may be, to get that re-inspection. It's a number that's thrown out there to start discussion. That's the long and short of it.
I also want to clarify quickly that, yes, I know that there are some people making a fortune on Airbnb, but I also know a lot of maybe older people who rent out, who have relatives and family and rent out their house for 6 weekends a year when there's something going on. They're not making a killing on it. It's helping them pay their mortgage and their real estate taxes and their insurance. So I don't want to make it so prohibitive that they don't do it. I also, as far as, I thought the law was that the apartments were supposed to be inspected every 3 or 5 years. And if somebody lived there for 20, the only time we're really inspecting them is when there's a changeover of tenant, and that's only if we know about it. Is that?
Sorry, was that a?
So my understanding is that they get inspected when we know there's a turnover, and only when we know there's a turnover, and they call us.
Their apartment itself, yes, only at turnover.
But
An apartment house that has common area, periodic inspection is spelled out in the building code that can be up to as far away as 5 years. So it could be every 5 years, but not in the apartment, just the common areas that.
The parking, it would be the parking lot in the front yard then,
Well,
backyard.
then that doesn't have any common areas, but where they empty into the same common hallway to exit the building, that's a common area. If they have a laundry room, if it's common area, if those are the ones that portion of the building, the egresses would get looked at, not the apartment itself. Now we get there when somebody moves out. Before someone can move in, we do that inspection.
If
of
you
the
know about it. If somebody tells you they're moving out.
Correct, correct.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bono.
Yeah, I think as it started, the mayor did say the $500 was a starting point. And as you can see, there is discussion and debate over it, and I think for this to get out there and, well, I'm sure we will hear from property owners of Airbnbs on their opinion. Airbnbs or short-term rentals and long-term rentals are apples and oranges, very different. One, you're setting up permanent residence, and it is different versus others. Your short-term rentals, they can make as much off of one day or a weekend as your long-term rentals typically make off of a month. And that is why that business has been growing and expanding. And, there are those that are out there. I would encourage, and I know I've passed this to the mayor, I think we do look, and people have asked us, like, how can the city benefit from these short-term rentals besides just people coming in and leaving? And there are other ways of doing that, but this is one potential way of doing that, and that cost would get passed on to the visitors, the tourists, no different than, and I think Councilor Barber said what others, and I guess if you looked at like a hotel and looked at all the inspection and certificates and licenses that a hotel has to get, it's probably substantial. It may not be one figure, but same thing with a lot of small businesses. There's multiple licenses some of them have to get, so that the totals sometimes are up in the several $100 ranges versus they're just getting one license. So I see it as an opportunity where this is an area that's growing in the city. And as for the small person who's renting out their house a few times a year, I don't even believe that falls under the short-term rental of how the codes work. I think they're allowed to, I'm not sure of how that inspection works. Also, when this was originally approved, it was told at the time this was not going to happen immediately because the fees, the city still had to come back forward to us with the fees. So that's where we are at this point. So we knew when we approved at that time, it wasn't going to happen immediately where the inspectors were going to be going out until they came forward with a fee. So that's where we're at right now, and it will go to committee. And I think all this discussion is good of where it should be, and hopefully we come out with an answer. Thank you.
Counselor Sapienza, then the mayor.
Yes, I just want to make a clarification. When I was talking about the equitability of this, the amount of this fee, I don't mean between long-term and short-term rentals. I'm strictly talking about short-term rentals. My concern is if the fee is too high, would it drive these businesses to go to other communities? And I understand that we need to recover the cost of our registration and recover the cost of our inspection process, so I do agree that we should have some type of fee. Again, I just want to reiterate, a higher initial fee and then a lower annual fee from there on out, as long as the, it's not a new registration or a new owner. Thank you.
Mayor?
I'll just quickly share, I won't read the list, I'll share this list with general government if that's where it's going. But they range anywhere from $50, $75, $200, $250, $500, $550. So there is quite a range. I'm not committed to $500. I just wanted to prompt some lively discussion, so I think I've achieved my goal.
So I've lost track of what the original motion is. I was just looking for a loss.
Motion was to refer to general government with a return date of the first meeting of September.
Are we still with that?
You wanted some things on the agenda to go with that first
Yeah.
one, right? Okay.
If we're gonna meet, let's go marathon, no problem.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Could I just, I know it's over, and I wasn't going to say anything, but I am going to say it. I know there was a lot of debate in Great Barrington regarding the long-term and the short-term rentals and ethical issues within the select board due to some owning short-term rentals and some owning long-term rentals, and how they do fluctuate. A short-term rental or a long-term rental can depend on what you're charging for a fee. So I would just make that point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we can move on to the next item. Section 52-3. Council Paper 12,285, a communication from City Clerk Tina Leonazio on behalf of Assistant City Clerk Screening Committee to recommend and the appointment of Melissa Kilbride as the Assistant City Clerk filling the unexpired term for a term to expire March 10th, 2025.
Motion to accept the recommendation of Madam Clerk Tina Leonizio.
Second.
Discussion. Everybody's read. Oh, I'm sorry, Counselor Sapienza.
Yeah, no, I just want to say what I've observed of the city clerk's office over the last several months since Tina has, or I'm sorry, Clerk Leonazio and her assistant, Ms. Kilbride, have exhibited, looks like they work well together. I've noticed that even in our packages and our communications from the city clerk's office to the councilors has been much better than in previous clerk administrations, or whatever you want to call it, clerk tenures. And I want to thank you for your services and for your help and everything. And I would wholeheartedly recommend this.
Anyone have any questions for the clerk? I agree. I think they work well together. I would also suggest you post the part-time position tomorrow. I didn't want to have her posted till everybody voted. I wanted to follow protocol. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Question. You didn't have your hand raised before.
What? I did. It's short. What part-time position are we posting?
Junior clerk.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, so Melissa's been in that position
right.
for a while, since Tina.
Why?
So originally there was, Josh Fallers was the clerk, and
Yes.
Tina was the assistant
Yep.
clerk, and we hired Melissa as the part-time clerk.
It seems to change constantly, but for the recent history, every time I go in there, I've been treated as a city councilor, and I get exactly what I want. I think it's working very functionally well, so I'm all in favor of it.
I think one thing, just to remind people and to be clear, is that the clerk and the assistant clerk, we approve them, and the junior clerk gets approved by the mayor,
That's correct.
and any additional staff.
By the mayor or by the clerk?
I hired the part-time and the additional staff.
Okay. So you can post the position,
Point
Mayor.
of clarification.
Counselor
Point
Herbie.
of clarification. So yes, the city council hires the clerk. The clerk hires the assistant clerk. So there shouldn't be any committees
for.
Recommendation
It should-
recommends a hire.
Yes, and we approve it, but
Right.
you are the one that is the hiring person for the
But we-
assistant clerk and the mayor for any temporary or additional help.
But particularly nowadays, most hiring is done with at least a screening/search committee to be part of that. As Clerk Valiers did when he hired Ms. Leonazio, and as she did when she made this hire. So, just to clarify that. Okay, so just, all I know is, can we post the position? Was my thought. Counselor Barbaro?
If I could interrupt that thought just for a second, kind of following up on that, could it just be appropriate for, when those screening committees are made available, to update the council? I mean, we are somewhat involved in making the decision. Is it out of line for the council to be updated as to who the screening committee even is?
I guess, did you ask the clerk, did you ask her? Or
I had
you
no
asking
idea there was
now?
a screening committee for her or the last. I think that's I had no idea. I guess that's what I'm trying to understand, because, I mean, I believe actually a few clerks back, the city council wasn't even told who the screening committee was for the clerk, but I mean, yeah. I don't have any problem with the appointment, I'm just asking.
It was because I announced it, maybe, I'm not sure if maybe you missed that meeting. It was Counselor Shade and Mr. Navalli from the Community Development's office and someone who's on the Board of Registrars for this clerk search.
Right, for the clerk.
For the
not
clerk,
assistant
and when Clerk Valiers hired Ms. Leonazio, Counselor Basahan was the person that
okay.
he
I didn't know that.
had interviewing with him. And this time you had Counselor Shade. So now you've all been updated for the last 6 months of clerk hires.
Only takes 6 months.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
Counselor, Mayor?
Counselor Barbara, when we hired Melissa in the part-time position, it was Clerk Valiers at the time, Assistant Clerk Leonizio, and myself.
Right, but we, the city council, didn't hire her. So that was,
Right.
And I also put it in my report when we recommended Tina too. So who was on it? I did it ahead of time and I did it as part of the report. Okay, so I've lost track. Have we actually voted on this?
We have not.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries. Congratulations. Does she have to do swearing?
Yes.
Okay, let's do the swearing. You get to swear. There'll probably be more of it.
I can go with it for that all
Raise
night.
your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. I'm Melissa Kilbride. Having been appointed as the Assistant City Clerk. Having been appointed as the Assistant City Clerk. Of North Adams. Of North Adams. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will uphold the laws and regulations. That I will uphold the laws and regulations. Of the Commonwealth. Of the Commonwealth. And City of North Adams. And City of North Adams. And will faithfully. And will faithfully. And impartially. And impartially. Perform all duties. Perform all duties. Of my office. Of my office. According to the best of my abilities. According to the best of my abilities. And understanding. And understanding. So help me God. So help me God.
Okay. Council Paper 12,286, a communication number 70 from the mayor. Zoning change, section 4.17, requesting an amendment to Chapter Z zoning, section 4, entitled Dimensional Regulations. Without objection, I'll file the communication. Mayor?
So basically, this zoning change is to promote the development of the former St. Francis property. And we felt rather than make a zoning change, that we felt that the whole zoning section should possibly be looked at, as it could impede development in other areas. My understanding is way back when, they wanted parking mostly behind buildings on the St. Francis site. I call it the St. Francis site. They're looking to have development in the front. And we find that some of the development along that corridor and in this I always say it wrong, CBD regulations, we may have other issues with development in other properties down the road. So I'd like to have the planning board take a look at this and then then propose a joint meeting with all of you.
So you want to put it before the planning board and then they have a joint meeting, or do we just want to have a joint meeting?
I think the planning board has to be versed on it first, and then the two of you have to have a joint meeting.
Okay.
Because why would they have a joint meeting if they don't know what's coming before them? But that's,
Well, because the problem, I mean, if it's a public hearing, they would have it ahead of time anyway, because it'd have to be published so many days beforehand. So if we have a joint meeting, well, the problem is we usually hold the joint meetings on their meeting nights at 5 or 5:30. Their next one would be August 14th. Or no, August 7th, because
You can't put it on the agenda for August 7th.
it's not August 7th, it would be August 8th.
I thought they needed 30 days.
Not for a public hearing, I don't think. It depends on what it is, that's the question. Okay, whatever. If they can or can't, then, so either, we'll just plan it for September. We'll do that.
come back to you in September.
Yeah, it'll come back to, well, it won't come back to us because, well, first, we're gonna have to have the joint meeting, which would be the second Monday of whatever month. And
August.
I just want to give people a heads up that there's going to be an extra meeting. So that because a lot of times we get there and we're struggling for a quorum, is what I'm trying to get at. So if the meeting can't be in August, if it's going to be in September then. And that would be I don't know what September is. I don't have my calendar in front of me.
I have the calendar,
Oh, I'll just look at my calendar.
planning board's on the 14th of August.
14th of August, the second Monday. So it's probably too late to publish a public hearing part of it. I think the building inspector has something to add.
Well, we're just trying to save time, more or less. So if we can get this before the planning board, they would make a recommendation to the joint meeting, the council and the planning board, then it would have to go through your process to actually change the zoning ordinance. It's a very simple change. It's about when we changed the main zoning of the city a few years ago, we changed it to a CBD zone in the downtown, and our idea was to keep buildings up near the street so that the main street doesn't have a 200-foot parking lot before you get to the building sitting right on Main Street. But it doesn't work that well on Union Street and maybe some areas farther out from the downtown. Holden Street, yes. Eagle Street, Ashland Street, Marshall Street, it all makes sense. Out there, it really doesn't. You wouldn't want your front door of Dunkin' Donuts sitting right on the sidewalk, and then they'd have to park behind the building to come to the front. It doesn't make any sense. So you could push the building back, have your parking in front, have your drive-through lanes. It makes perfect sense, but it's a process. So the planning board has to make a recommendation, you have to have a joint hearing, and then your process of the two meetings.
Frequently, what's happened, though, is we have said, okay, let's have the joint. Usually what has happened is we have the joint public hearing, and then they have their 6 o'clock meeting, and they vote and make a recommendation back to the council.
Yep.
That's been what we've done on a lot of things.
That's perfectly fine.
The question is, I'm trying to think what the publishing is. I thought it was 14 days.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks.
So we have 2 weeks before the 11th of, before the 14th of August, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you got that.
So tentatively plan for, and if we can't do it, if it has to go, it'll be in September, but tentatively plan for a meeting 5 or 5:30, depending on what the planning board wants to do, on August 14th. Counselor Wilkinson.
Well, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, I was under the impression to put anything on the planning board's agenda, they needed a 30-day notice.
I think that's for the public to put something before for a business or something to come in.
okay.
I don't know. I'm saying, I think there's certain regulations about a public hearing. But they're usually, when we have a public hearing for a poll, we vote on it 1 week and we post it for the next meeting 2 weeks later. Counselor Harpen.
Could we make a motion to send it to the planning board and let them make that decision? And if they decide to post the public hearing, just the half an hour before they have their planning board meeting, then they can post the meeting?
If we send it to them, if they need the time,
You're making us more complicated.
Well, I believe President Blackmer is correct, that this body can schedule a joint public hearing for the 14th. There's enough time to get it advertised so that that night at 5:30, you have your joint public hearing. It shouldn't take long. The planning board hears it, approves it, makes a recommendation, and then your 2 meetings, however that lays out, your 2 meetings you have after that.
okay, well, we planned for a joint public hearing at 5:30 on the 14th of August. Thank you, Inspector Moranti. Counselor Bona.
Yeah, I'm just curious, through the chair, is there a
I may not be here.
upcoming development happening with this property? Why we're doing this okay, that's fine. Thank you.
What was the answer to that question?
Was a head shake.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so, what is so the motion would be to refer to the planning committee, but also to plan,
Can
Counselor.
I just ask a question based on the answer to that? Wouldn't the correct process be for that business to go before the zoning board and the planning board asking for the variance change? Or asking for the, I mean, is that not the proper process of how this should be working? Because it seems like we're cutting steps, and I'm not really sure that that's following procedure. And you know me, I love procedure.
Okay, then make sure next time you're not going to be here, you follow council rules and let me know or the clerk know.
I would be happy to do that, and I did. As a matter of fact, if you could show me where those are written, I'd be thrilled to
I could-
reciprocate.
They're not there.
Counselor,
Time out,
Counselor, again,
time
I'm
out.
sorry, Mr.
We can be
Moranti.
snippy.
So,
That's right, you're allowed to be.
I will
rude.
respond in exactly the
Excuse
way I'm
me,
treated.
Mr. Moranti, could you answer the question?
sure, I think that it's proper to go either way, actually. So the applicant could come forward with their attorney and make this application. The city can change the ordinance as you all see fit through this same process, whether it's brought up by a city councilman or the mayor's office or my office. So I think any of those are proper. This is different than some, but it's proper.
This isn't not the first time we've done this a couple times. Counselor Shade.
Yeah, I think with this particular change, if that business was just looking for it for themselves, that would be the right process. But it looks like the administration's looking for us to do this for any type of business in that situation as a permanent thing, not just a one-time exception. So I think that's why the process is a little different than just a business requesting it, because that would just be a one-time exception to the rule, whereas we're looking to change the rule altogether.
So a variance versus a business asking for a variance of the rules as opposed to an actual ordinance change that would impact anybody in that district.
Correct.
Counselor Oleskowitz.
Through the chair to the administration, are we making this change? Is there someone that is interested in this change, or is it something that we will be doing to make it more attractive for someone to come?
Both. There is someone interested in this change for the development of the St. Francis property. When they came forth and spoke to us, we looked at the whole zone and thought there may be other areas that could be impacted. So rather than do a onesie-twosie, we thought it would be best to modify the change, and that's why we put in the ordinance, foregoing shall not apply to the portion of a front yard on Main Street, because we felt that Main Street area should be preserved as it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we have a motion to refer to the planning board. Actually, did we go to, no, we actually at the ordinance? No, that was the mayor's communication. Let's move on to the ordinance. Council Paper 12,286, an ordinance amending Chapter Z zoning, Section 4, dimensional regulations by adding select Section 4.17. A motion to refer to the planning board would be in order.
Motion to refer to planning board?
For the return, oh, no, what, do we do a return?
Didn't we already do that?
No, we did the
We
council.
filed it at first, and then we...
Did we file, or did we
yeah,
have
no,
more
you
discussion?
You filed it first, and then we went, and we had discussion.
And we had discussion, we haven't brought up the actual ordinance. We haven't brought the ordinance to vote on.
We were still.
We were still on her communication.
So if we're sending it to the planning board, do we need a return request?
Second, first meeting
September.
in August. When's our first meeting in August?
August 7th.
Oh, it's the 8th, because it's the
Yep.
week before. Second meeting in August. That way they can meet, vote on it, and then we can hit it in the second meeting in August. We can refer to a second, pass to a second reading and publish in September.
So we don't need any joint meeting?
No, we're gonna need a joint meeting, but we. I lost track, we've gone around so many
Point of
times.
order?
Counselor Shay.
Yes, I believe the plan is to refer it to the planning board, have the joint meeting on the 14th, and then the recommendation here for the motion is so that it'll come back for the second meeting of the council, so we can vote and decide whether to publish, make change, et cetera, et
Do all
cetera.
that.
Well, that's what I thought, but do we
Yeah.
say we're referring to the planning board, do they make the joint meeting, or do we say we're referring it to the planning board?
I can set a
and-
joint
and
meeting
to
of the
set
planning
up
board.
a
Okay,
joint meeting?
So rescind your motion.
Okay, I rescind my motion.
A motion to refer to the planning board with a joint meeting on August 14th.
Okay.
For our joint meeting, and then for their recommendation of their meeting to come back to us by the second meeting in August.
Okay, so I'll make the motion, so moved.
Second?
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council Paper 12,287, a resolution, an order approving the authorization to apply for grant to complete lead and copper pipe inventory water system. A communication from the, no, that's, okay, so Mayor, I'm not sure if we actually got the ordinance paper, or the order.
I submitted it.
Is it on the agenda, or is it in the
It's
paper?
not on the agenda. I did not do the second part. That was my error. So I only put the communication in, I didn't put the second part in for the resolution. And I caught that when I was putting our stuff together.
Do you have it? I can give it to someone to read.
I have my copy.
Yeah, my only
No,
question is it's not
I
on
have
the,
it.
my only question is it's not on the agenda.
Oh,
Can we vote on the order if it's not on the agenda?
Is it time imperative?
Yes.
Okay, well, then,
When is our next meeting? I'm sorry.
our next meeting is in, what's today?
So we'll meet the 7th or
August
the 8th.
14th.
Our meeting's.
August,
Yeah, it's August,
8th?
no, it's August 8th.
August
8th,
8th.
Yeah,
What's your
it's
deadline?
August 8th.
the end of the month, but that's okay.
No,
No, it's fine. We'll have to wait till the 8th.
or we can do it under, that I would consider, if it's a grant that's due, then I would do an emergency vote.
It's just a technicality of paperwork that I need approval of the council to apply for this grant.
So do we need an order, or can we just vote on it?
Well, they asked for this documentation.
Okay. Oh, let's vote on it. Read the resolution and we'll vote.
Do you want me to tell you about it?
Yeah,
before-
that too.
Okay. So we are applying, the city of North Adams is applying for an SRF, which is a state revolving fund loan, to comply with the new lead and copper rule that's been issued recently by the DEP. The rule requires the city to complete an inventory of all lead and galvanized pipe within the city, including all residential properties, with the ultimate requirement to remove all lead and galvanized pipe by 2025. There are currently approximately 4,500 service lines in the city that need to be inventoried. This application for funds to inventory all service lines in the city is the first step to achieving that goal. I'm requesting council authorization to apply for this loan, but please keep in mind that the terms of this loan we're applying for is, the principal that we would be borrowing will be 100% forgiven through this program. So it's kind of like a pass-through. They give us the loan, then the grant pays for the money. And we've done SRF loans in the past. I think some of you remember when we did that inflow in the INI study
Yep.
many years ago. So it's the same format.
Oh, any
And
questions?
it is the council's.
Okay, so
pleasure.
did you read the resolution?
Oh, do you want me to read the resolution?
Just read the resolution, we'll vote on it.
Okay. Whereas the city of North Adams, after through investigation, has determined that the work activity consisting of the water service inventory and lead service line replacement is both in the public interest and necessary to protect the public health, and that to undertake this activity is necessary to apply for assistance. And whereas the DEP and the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, pursuant to Chapter 20 of Chapter 29C of the General Laws of the Commonwealth, are authorized to make grants and/or loans to municipalities for the purpose of funding, planning, and construction activities relevant to the drinking water protection projects. And whereas the applicant has examined the provisions of the Act, Chapter 21 and Chapter 29C, and believes it will be in the public interest to file for a grant or loan application. Now therefore be it resolved by the North Adams City Council as follows, that the mayor is hereby authorized on behalf of the applicant to file applications and execute agreements for grant and/or loan assistance, as well as furnishing such information, data, and documents pertaining to the applicant of the grant and/or loans as may be required, and is otherwise authorized to act as an authorized representative to the applicant in connection with this application. And number 2, that the purpose of this grant loan, if awarded, shall be for planning activities. And number 3, that if said award is made by the applicant, made to the applicant agrees to pay those costs which constitute the required applicant share of the project cost. We don't know what the project cost will be yet because we haven't done the inventory. So this is more like a planning exercise.
Thank you. Counselor Sapienza?
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor, you mentioned, I know the communication mentions lead and copper. You mentioned galvanized pipe. Is that also included in the study?
Yes, the program is called Lead and Copper, but the galvanized piece is in there.
Thank you. I just wanted that clarification. Thank you.
Counselor Shade?
Yes, through the chair to the mayor. So if we get this program approved and we get an inventory of all our lead and copper pipes that need to be replaced, is this saying we're committing to whatever cost it is to replace those pipes?
Well, by 2025, we have to have the inventory and a plan to replace. So I'm assuming once we get through this activity, then another pot of money will help us. But we haven't gotten that far yet. This is the first step that could open other doors for us.
Okay.
But this is also part of our water and sewer replacement plan.
Counselor Bona, then Counselor Sapienza.
Through the chair, so this is we're approving to allow to apply for grants for this is just for doing the inventory.
Correct.
But it also is loans, but we don't know a cost of what those loans, there's no cap to say how much we're saying you could take, because if it's a loan, then that's sort of out of the budget versus a grant.
Right, so.
It's grant money, so.
It's a revolving fund. So one entity gives you the loan, the other entity gives you the grant. They're kind of tied together.
Okay, so it's not just, we're not going to get just a loan, we're going to get a grant that pays the loan.
Correct, it's
Okay.
a revolving
Okay.
fund.
Gotcha, thank you.
Counselor Sapienza, and then Counselor Hartman.
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor, how far in depth, this may be putting the cart before the horse, but how far into basically the city consumers' water supply are we going? Are we looking at just the mains underneath our streets or the supply lines that supply individual homes?
I believe it's the supply lines to individual homes.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Urban.
Through the chair to the mayor, do we still have wooden pipes?
Actually, we
I
have
know
some
there
wood
was one
pipes.
on
Summer
River Street.
Yeah, and there's,
Okay.
was one on Summer Street that we replaced.
Was one on Cleveland Ave.
Okay, so those are still, that's all going to be a part of it as well, no matter what type of piping it is, they will identify it.
We had a sewer break on Summer Street. We found wooden pipes, so those were all replaced as well. But yeah, there are some still out there that we
Yeah.
discovered.
Okay.
It's
thank you.
scary.
Yeah, they're old.
Particularly in the middle of February. So this is the main lines and then the lines to the houses?
I believe so, yes. We need to do an inventory of both to determine what material we have within our water system.
In the one at the property, from the sewer line to the house, to the resident, could be anything, and replacing those could be part of the future grants?
No.
Right, we have to do the inventory
Right,
of
before
all
they
the
could do
service
that.
lines, yes.
Okay.
This is, to me, basically the study, like the feasibility, before
Right.
we decide how much we're going to spend on fixing and correcting the.
Yes.
Right, and I understand that. I just didn't know.
And years ago, administrations were able to just apply for these things, and again, trying to work collaboratively with the legislative branch, you know, they require sign-off, so you're aware. So this is a good thing.
Yeah, I just have good, because I know that when, honestly, this goes back to personal experience. There was a break, they told us it was in our line, we were responsible. It flooded into the apartment complex across the street, they realized the break was not on our property, but actually at the main. So I guess I'm wondering who's responsible I was told I was responsible from the street to my house.
Most times you are, yes, that is true.
But we're hoping this will replace some of those.
We are, but we've got to identify what we have and look
Okay.
at the whole, we can't
Just curious.
define the scope of the project until we identify what we have.
Okay, I just was getting
So
clarification.
more to come on that topic.
Yay. Counselor Sapienza.
Yeah, one quick thing, just a point of information. I noticed that our neighbors over the mountain in Troy, New York are undergoing a similar project right now where they're actually at the replacement stage of replacing the water supply lines. I guess they found quite a bit of lead in their system, so they're in the process of replacing them.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Point of order.
Counselor,
Motion and second were made to,
The resolution.
to the resolution.
That's not
So-
on the agenda.
a point of order, so, all right. I just want to make
She
sure that
read
we
the
were.
agenda, she read the resolution as part of her communication.
So we just right now voted to,
Approve our communication with the
With the
resolution.
resolution attached.
so it wasn't
The resolution was in the council papers. If not, I will add it in.
I'm just looking for the clarification that the communication was
saying, it was.
filed, but the order was never on, so should we vote on this first? We're jumping right to the vote. It wasn't on the agenda, even though I'm sure it's going to pass, but just to follow protocol, should we
It wasn't-
have a motion out there to put this to
They said it
vote
wasn't
and
on the
then
posted
vote?
agenda.
It's not on this,
Right.
but it is in,
It's in the resolution, and it says mayor's communication, it's a resolution, so I think we're good.
So the paper, it's missing here, but it is in here.
No, it is there, but I'm saying we were voting, but
We're voting on the resolution as she read it, and it was included in our papers, it was included on the papers online,
okay, I'll accept that.
okay? Counselor Shade?
Yeah, I believe on the agenda it says mayor's communication, that it's a resolution. And because it's a communication and a resolution, I think it's okay to vote on. I don't think we need an order for a resolution.
I was just making sure
Voting
that the
to
clarification is
approve.
right, that we had, the vote wasn't on the agenda, and we just went to vote. I just felt it proper that someone made a motion in a second.
We had a motion,
that we do
didn't we?
vote to actually vote. We had the motion and second were to actually vote on this, to say yes.
To vote on the resolution, what are you talking, are you saying to add an agenda item? The motion was to pass the resolution to adopt the resolution as presented, or, well, okay, whatever, what was the motion?
to,
Accept the
It was
resolution.
voted on.
the mayor
We're still
read.
voting on there, but the
Okay.
vote wasn't on the agenda, is what I'm saying.
But we can't.
It-
We're voting on the communication with the
to
resolution.
adopt as the mayor
And it's
read.
communication, the resolution was included in the communication.
We voted to accept the resolution that was read to us in her communication.
But it was presented, all right, so.
Otherwise, we can also do it as a separate vote, as a separate, I don't know. I think it's covered. It's part of the resolution. Does anybody else have a question on it?
I'll just make a comment. I think we're fine. When I'm looking at the communication from the mayor, it says communication number 71. The subject is resolution, water service inventory and lead service line replacement plan, July 25th, 2023. So we're voting on that, which.
And the resolution is there.
I mean, if the
Anyone else?
resolution wasn't in our paper, that would be different, but we
But it
did.
is, and it was in the online communications to the public.
Yep.
Anyone else have everyone else all set? A motion and a second. And did we vote? I can't even keep track because they waited.
did.
Okay, we're good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, council paper, let me just make sure I'm on the right one. Communication from Mayor Maxey, number 72, council paper 12,288, recommending the appointment of Wayne Wilkinson to serve as a member of the Mobile Home Control Board for a term to expire September 1st, 2024.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Mayor?
I know it's unusual for me to appoint a city council to a committee. My general rule has I've been trying to avoid that because you all do so much. But in terms of the Mobile Home Rent Control Board, as you know, in the recent terms, we've made several appointments of new people. And while they're very competent and capable, we're missing some of the historic knowledge. Councilor Wilkinson has been nice enough to attend a couple of meetings and guide them, and it came back to me that it would be nice if we could maybe appoint Councilor Wilkinson to get us through our next fee increase, which is coming forth from Wheel Estates. I reached out to a couple of the former board members who did not want to participate. I didn't go deep into the trenches. But Councilor Wilkinson said that he would be willing to help guide us and participate in this next portion that we have with Wheel Estates. So I know it's a little bit unusual and different from my normal tune, but I feel in this instance that he has the knowledge and he's ready, willing, and able, and the committee is looking forward to work with him. And we really need to keep this process moving for the mobile home rent control.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Oh, Councilor Wilkinson, do you want to comment?
Yes, I'm going to obviously abstain.
Oh, well, yeah. Councilor Shade? No, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Council Paper 12,289, an order to finalize the fiscal '23 budget closeout transfers in the amount of $842,830.08.
Move to approve.
Second?
Discussion? Mayor, do you want to have a,
If you'd like, I'd like to go through the twos, just to give you a brief explanation of why we're transferring, if that's the council's pleasure.
yep,
Okay. So under general government, city council, that overage is mostly due to advertising. Foreclosure cost, we talked about that in budget. That was additional tax titles that we did to help move that process along. The law department, as discussed in budget, was really additional legal fees. We did increase that line for fiscal year '24. MIS were unplanned events for Spitzer Center, which we're still struggling with. The internet, additional wiring issues throughout City Hall, wiring issues at the fire department, new circuits that we needed to provide for the PD and City Hall, more camera equipment for security, campground software, as well as parking. We're looking at some parking software, which we had in that. In the city clerk's office, most of that overage was because we had to do some work on the voting machines and additional printing. Board of Appeals was advertising. Building and property was over for the Sullivan School. We had to make an investment in $20,000 of plywood to repair all the windows that someone broke, to board up all the windows that someone broke. And then we also had to repair the sprinkler system at the library. Tourism, that was a change in funding. We brought Lexi on full-time or reduced time in January, and her hours were increased. I'm sorry, not Lexi, Lindsay. Too many L's. Under public safety, that was due to dispatcher uniforms. In both police lines, that budget blew up on us a little bit, mostly around personnel. We had hired 3 officers and lost 2. We had also moved to a pitman schedule because our staffing levels were so low. And then unfortunately, we had some officers that needed to be out of work for extended period of time for death and family. And as well as some academy expenses went up, but we encompassed all of that in the fiscal year 24 budget. Under fire, that was really driven by increase of costs for uniforms. Wire and alarm, most of that overage is because we're trying to replace the damaged streetlights that we weren't able in past years to collect insurance on. Animal control, overtime. Transfer station really was the cost of doing business. Increased revenue equals increased expenses. Under public services, the overage there was mostly due to seasonal workers and adding part-time people in the city clerk's office because we clarified some of their work as seasonal, as well as adding Kathy Verrier to the building department. Engineering, that was all geared towards our work that we're doing on the Walnut Street wall repairs. Snow and ice, Mother Nature, thank you for that. Street lighting, upgrades for light poles and electronic replacements. Again, costs are going up. Cemetery, departmental parts and accessories. Veteran services, the salary adjustment that wasn't budgeted for the assistant benefits agent or in prior years, the principal clerk in that office. Library, training for new personnel and a payout for a retired individual. Parks and Rec, that was just driven by some staffing and some step increases. The vocational assessment, we had a student added mid-year to Smith Folk. And then capital items, that was driven by natural gas, our wonderful elevator, and gas costs. So for a total transfer of $842,000 and change. All is still available within our budget. Coming from wire and alarm, we did not fill the second position there. Veteran services, we always kind of put in reserve the veterans benefit payroll. The school department had additional money, which was offset by grants, and then we budgeted our reserve account for $50,000.
Thank you. Any questions? Counselor Bona?
Through the chair, I suspect next year this number will probably be much tighter. And the
Yes.
reason because as we did go through the budget, you tighten numbers up to be more accurate to what expenses and costs have been. So, I mean, this number is pretty typical of what we usually see, annually, but sometimes a little higher, but I know when we went through the budget, there was a lot of adjusting to be like, we took 20,000 off here because we really don't spend it, so it'll be interesting to see what next year's look like.
The really wild card and disappointing to me was, the police salary and expenses. We really hope by hiring those 3 new officers that would help with our overtime budget in fiscal year 23. So when you hire 3 and you lose 2, and then your core team, you have 3 officers out in the same month, we still need to cover the shifts the best we can. So that number kind of blew up on us. But as it was, we were gauging as to where we were with other parts of the budget. And then, snow and ice, gosh darn it, it snowed every weekend, and they were what I call nuisance storms, not enough, to close down the city in some instances, but just enough to have a whole crew out salting and sanding. And we got, a lot of ice that required a lot of call-ins. And then IT, we all know it. We need to make major improvements in there, but there's just some things we can't put off to the next fiscal year. So when things go down in that department, we have to fix things. And again, we're gauging as to where we are. The auditing team, we meet monthly and go over those numbers. So, we hate to do these types of transfers, but they're typical. But they're all within the budget. They're all within the budget, so we are in the black. And our local receipts, even though we're still settling out some of the transactions, we performed very well with revenue this year.
Counselor Harpen.
Yeah, through the chair to the mayor, I think it's great. I'm happy to hear that. We performed very well this year. That's great news. I just have a couple of questions. The couple of things that I'm concerned about is the from section from the school, and it specifically states that it's salaries of $616,000, but you did mention there was a grant that subsidized that. Is that correct?
Yep, so there were other funds available, other financing funds available on the school side, so they were able to return that money to us.
Okay, so is that money that they would have normally put in their reserve account and they didn't?
No, it's money that gets turned back to us.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a normal practice? Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. My other question, and the thing that stood out to me too, was the transfer station. It's like, it's over $100,000. And I think it represents how important it is to really keep on track of this stuff and the fees. Yeah, so, this is one area that we can kind of try to, help out in as a council and get our fees up to date. I think there's some other ones that could affect the budget as well, as far as the fees go, to get that implemented so that the revenue does increase in the city. So those are my two concerns, the school and the transfer station. I know there's still a lot of work to do at the transfer station. I know there's been a lot of progress up there already, but, just keep on plugging away.
Thank you. And Counselor Harpen, I agree with you totally about the fees at the transfer station. We need to kind of close in on that. But also, when we set our budget in fiscal year '23, the number escapes me, just went right out of my head. We based it on an estimated tons in and tons out. And what we were finding is we were bringing more in and bringing more out, so therefore our cost of hauling was more. But I think in fiscal year '24, we really worked those numbers over. And took into consideration some of this. So with the transfer station, our costs are mostly associated with volume.
Is there any way we can get a copy of that analysis?
Yep.
Okay. That would
It's
be great.
rough. It's rough.
Yeah,
but-
no, it would be great. It's
Yeah.
not- We normally do get to look at that during budget season, so it would be nice to see.
Sure.
Thank you.
I saw a hand over here. No. Anyone else have questions? Okay, so this is an order, so we're gonna, it's a roll call vote.
Barbo,
Yes.
Spona,
Yes.
Harpen,
Yes.
Alaskowitz.
Yes.
Sapienza,
Yes.
Shade,
Yes.
Wilkinson,
Yes.
Blackmare.
Yes.
All in favor.
All in favor, motion carries. Okay. I guess, Mayor, we should have moved that to the front, so the staff could have gone home.
They're enjoying their time.
Taxi licenses? None. None. Secondhand, none, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say. Open forum, this is an opportunity for the public to speak to the council for 2 minutes on issues of municipal significance. Please give your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Julie Williamson. I live at 12 Rock Street, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time. Since July 9th, there's been a steady flow of water running over the culvert and directly into our driveway on Rock Street. Large sections of the road have collapsed and or been flushed down to the bottom of the hill. The culvert overflowing has been an issue for years, but we've never seen it quite like this. It hasn't stopped for over 2 weeks. Sorry, nervous. It's flowing so much and so constantly that we now have algae growing on the road, the sidewalk, and our driveway. We're aware that the problem is bigger than our little street, but there's concern that we'll be overlooked up there. So just wanted to bring this to your attention. Also, a little concern that any fix that happens may not be prepared for the ever-increasing weather extremes that we're experiencing with climate change. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. Also, I don't know what sort of drainage infrastructure currently exists up there, but it's clearly not sufficient. And so I come here before you to be the squeaky wheel for my neighborhood in hopes that this issue receives the attention it deserves. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The mayor, I think, might want to
Oh, Mayor?
If I may just have 2 quick minutes to
Yep.
address that. Hear you, know you, not know you, but I've been up there myself, and it is very scary up there. We are waiting for a piece of equipment because there's so much rock in that culvert, we just can't break away. I was told that the equipment will either be here this week or next week, but it's a specialized piece of equipment because we just don't want to blow out that whole culvert any more than what it is. So we haven't forgotten you, and we will be there very soon. They tell me that the road is safe, but we do understand that it is deteriorating because of the consistent water flow. But we've got to get that huge rock out of there, and usually we can hit the loader and break it, but they're afraid of that whole integrity of that pipe blowing out. That's how fragile it is, that we don't want to do that. But we are engaging with an engineer to look at the long-term plan for not only your area, but the Walnut Street area and that whole mountainside, as well as some other areas in the city. So you're not forgotten, and I'll be happy to talk to you after. Okay. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mayor's updates. Should have just sat.
Okay, so thank you for the lively conversation tonight. It was a great meeting. So as far as our damage so far, we are continuing to assess damage. The more we dig and the more we fix, the more we find, believe it or not. So I think at our last meeting, I said we were about 2 million. We are currently up to about 4.6 million in damage. We have been working with MEMA every single day. As you know, the governor was here, as well as yesterday, Congressman Neal. I've been pleading, begging, I haven't cried yet, but I could do that, for assistance from the state and federal government. So we still are compiling numbers as well as other communities. The assessment is ongoing. I still encourage residents, if they have water that looks out of the ordinary, to please let us know. We're discovering water issues in areas that we've never had water issues before. So again, our damage, we do have our initial IDA report into FEMA, which is about $4.6 million. We are engaging with an engineering company to look at long-term plans, but our immediate goals are making all of our roads safe, passable, and helping our residents get back to whatever normal is for the houses that sustained a lot of water intake. I'm thrilled to be working with a group called Team Robicon. They're a group of veterans who are staying at our armory. They have come into the community, and they're a nonprofit organization that help communities recover from flood and disasters. So we have about 20 to 30 people. The number keeps changing because people keep coming in and out, working in our community, helping people clean out their basements, helping people get their house and all that mud in their basements out. So far, they've worked with 2 homes, and they have a list of 15 homes that we've prioritized. If anyone is in need of any assistance, with some cleanup, you should really reach out to Chief LaFave at the fire department. But this team is awesome. They've come in, they're sleeping on cots in the armory, using our showers in the armory, and really using the armory for what it was originally for. And they've done some really good work so far in the community. We thank them for their service, we thank them for their time, and we're very grateful to have them. So if anyone finds themselves in the predicament of, I don't know how I'm going to lift this stuff out of my basement, please reach out to Chief LaFave, and we can do an assessment and get you some help. It feels like there should be a million updates, but we are just really focused on the recovery of the storm, and as we take on more water, we have more concerns. But overall, we're trying to get to everyone as fast as we can. We've tried to employ some outside contractors to help us. We haven't been that successful. So the team, this week, we've been devising some overtime plans and extra work schedules. But they're out there and they're doing the best they can with the resources that we have available. And before I part tonight, I just want to give a big thank you to Greta from the Berkshire Eagle. I don't know if all of you know it, but Greta will be leaving on Friday, the Berkshire Eagle, and taking another post at the Springfield Republican. So she's been almost part of our staff, so to say, for the last, or my staff has 18 months. And I want to thank you for your professionalism and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Committee reports and minutes. Liaison updates, counselors' concerns. Counselor Barbo.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd just like to kind of update the council a little bit. I had the opportunity to attend a meeting last Wednesday, I believe it was, held by the Commission on Disabilities. And they had invited in the Massachusetts Office of Disability Coordinator, Jeff Dugan, to address many of their concerns that they have found unanswered as a commission. And some of the information that was shared actually had to do with the city council and communications that they submitted in June of 2022 to the city council, and they were not addressed. So, long story short, the clerk was there, but there were many, it was quite enlightening. It was a long meeting, and I was a little bit concerned what the protocol is when letters are submitted to the clerk's office, to the council president and the council, and why those are not being forwarded to us. There was a response from a councilor to the commission, who did sign the response as the North Adams City Council. Now, I know I have missed some meetings, but I am very up to date on what's happening. This never was forwarded to us. So I felt a little disheartened that they had to go to the state in order to get answers to their questions regarding general law and guidance from this council. That's part one. Part two, they discussed at length the missing of an ADA coordinator in our city, and the fact that that leaves us, I believe the words you used, Clerk Linazio, was ineligible for both state and federal funding due to the lack of having an ADA coordinator. And there was several people who attended, and the fact that just our handicap ramp is blocked and not accessible due to the cone that's there, that our meetings, just as I know we've scheduled quite a bit of meetings tonight, but just something for this council to consider. I believe what he stated was they would have to find an alternate location since we are not ADA compliant with allowing that to happen. So I guess there's a couple of points there, but I would just ask, what is the protocol when communications are sent? This wasn't read as a communication to the council, or what is the protocol for that?
I have to go back and look at my emails or something.
I have a copy of it right here if you want to see it.
So was it sent to every counselor?
It was turned into the clerk's office, addressed to the council president, I believe is what they said.
It says, Dear Honorable City Council
was June of
President Lisa Blackmere and Honorable Councilors, It is signed by the Commission of Disabilities. It is from the Commission of Disabilities. There was a response by Counselor Bona on June 22nd, 2022. I went through and checked all my email. I don't delete anything, because just in case anybody wants a copy or there's a records request or whatever the case may be. I never delete an email. I never received this email, I never received this communication. Now, I just want to say this isn't really the most important thing about this issue, but it is an issue that some of us counselors are obviously not getting all the communication and information as other counselors are. That was just recognized tonight with the city clerk and the assistant city clerk and the hiring committees, that some of us counselors did not know. So I appreciate the mayor stating how she appreciated Greta's professionalism, and I do too, because Greta is very professional. But I would expect that to be within the city council as well. I try to act professional. I try to treat people professionally. This has been an issue before. Respect, professionalism. We're all elected officials. There's nobody better than anybody else. There's nobody higher than anybody else. There's nobody that I have to really report to. Except for the people of North Adams. That's who I report to. So if I didn't tell you that I wasn't going to be at a meeting, it wasn't a council issue. It wasn't anything that's written in our rules. And I felt as though I report to the people of North Adams. So I apologize. I didn't make a meeting. However, it's very disheartening, it's very upsetting that for some reason I am not getting some communications here. It also is very disheartening, and we need to ensure that what's going on with the Commission of Disabilities, which is a very important commission, that everybody is aware of it and everybody is able to act on it, because us as a council, we are responsible. It's just like the open meeting law complaint. It was two counselors that were involved in it, but we as a council voted on it. The whole council is responsible for this stuff. All of us are responsible. We're all elected city councilors. So it's important we all get the information, we all vote with knowledge.
So this is the first I've heard of this. I don't remember. I would have to go look at my email. Anytime a communication came in to the clerk, if they notified me, if it went only to the clerk, and I was the chair. Okay, I can only say when I was the chair, and I know that Councilor Leonizio has only been here since October. But before that, anybody, if they said, hey, we got this communication, I say, make sure you share it with the entire council. So if you didn't get it, I'm not sure what happened. I'm going to go back through and look. I don't know if I knew about it. It was a year ago. I can't remember that far back. I can barely remember what I did 2 weeks ago. So I didn't know. I can't answer the question because, like you said, it was just brought up. It wasn't asked to me. I was not at the ADA meeting. I was on vacation. I actually took a vacation with family for a while. So I don't know. I guess it's odd that you're not getting communication. Is this? I guess the problem with this is you don't know if you're not getting it. So I don't know what happened last June. I can follow up and look through my notes or my email and see if there's usually a response. But I also know that there has been a lot of glitches with the emails, that we've had problems off and on where people aren't getting emails. So I'm not sure. You said Counselor Bona responded. He responded, I'm guessing, as Counselor Bona. And I didn't see a copy of that, but we also don't deliberate by sending emails, by responding to all. So that has been my policy. If I find out, if there's an email that comes in to me that they want to share, or usually they go to the clerk, I tell them to share it with the entire council. And that's what I have advised. So the fact that Councilor Barbo didn't get it, I'm not sure why, and I can only go back.
If I could just, I think we're getting off the topic for me. The point I was trying to make was, this commission addressed the council looking for a response or a legal opinion to questions that they had. And it was very upsetting to me to see them go to the state, because we, as a council, we did not discuss or give them the information they were looking for. That's what's upsetting. Not getting, I didn't have emails for, I want to say it was probably 6 or 7 weeks. So somehow I'm deleted frequently from the all users and from the, it's a consistent ongoing battle. But regardless, that was just concerning to me. As I said, there were other things that came up during the meeting as well. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to say, I'm not a legal expert, and I wouldn't comment on ADA. My understanding is we do have an ADA coordinator, that it was Mr. Moranti. So I'm going to let the mayor clarify that.
Okay.
Okay, so in history, the building inspector before many years ago was Vinnie Lively. He was quote-unquote the ADA coordinator. Then it went to Mr. Moranti by default. We have had, I have had conversations with the chair of the Disabilities Commission that we need to name a more appropriate type of person, someone to work regularly. We are trying to identify that person. Mrs. Sprague just sent me a very nice email summarizing the meeting, and I have 2 or 3 employees in mind for that. And we're happy to make that appointment, but it's capacity for my staff right now. I do think it's very, very important, and we do need to do it for opening the door for more opportunities. I don't disagree with that fact at all. The second part about the cone, we are under contract with someone to do the sidewalk. I think I've said that to you before. We anticipated that work to be done in July. Unfortunately, with everything else going on, the contractor has gone to other jobs. We are working on that as fast as we can. If I didn't have the cone there, I'd be in trouble. I have the cone there, and I'm in trouble. I can't win with that darn ramp. It's dangerous no matter what we do, but we are planning on fixing it. And lastly, I just want to say that my feeling is Clerk Leonasia has done a really good job in trying to keep us all on task. And some of the issues that have been discussed tonight are systemic of all of the changes in that office. But Tina, Clerk Leonasia, is working very hard in trying to keep us all on the same page, and she works very hard every day doing that and interacts very well with the staff here. And I know some of you have called me and said that, you didn't get certain things that you regularly get. I'm hoping that has subsided since Clerk Leonasia has been in. But if you're expecting something from my administration, I know if you don't see it, you don't know what you're getting, but please reach out, i.e., your monthly budget reports, those kind of things, local receipts, et cetera. So I hope you're all getting those. This has been more technology. My issues have been technology, where I'm not getting. I was without email from Wednesday to Sunday evening, and my calendar blew up. So I feel the pain of everyone, and we're working to fixing those things. To get back to the original thought that Councilor Barbaro brought up, those 2 topics, those are my comments to those.
Okay. Councilor Bowman?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say briefly, not to continue off of that, but a little bit about, since we have gone digital with our agendas, I do recall prior when we were getting our hard copies, and this was 3 city clerks ago, maybe 4, we would get more correspondence, it seems, with our agendas, and they could be anything from invites, flyers from vendors, I don't know. It just seems like I don't see those anymore, and I'm not sure, maybe it's because they are coming via email, and you look at all the emails we get, because a lot of it's not just for council. We get lots of emails, so I don't know if they just get lost in emails, but we don't seem to get the correspondence that we used to get, and maybe people just don't send stuff to the city council anymore. But I'm just putting that out there as even from the state. We used to get stuff from the state a lot that would always be put out on our tables or with our agendas, and I guess is that just all gone digital now? So.
I think we used to get stuff from the MMA all the time.
Yeah.
That's all digital. We used to get stuff, like you said, invitations and things like that. I occasionally get, usually I get email about a specific issue. whether it's a parking lot issue or the vote on some particular thing, all of a sudden there'll be a flurry of emails about something. I don't usually get a lot of, we have a spam filter that's pretty good, but I still get a lot of community development, economic development. Mostly I would call it spam. I'm assuming that they get everybody's email off the website and blind send it. But you're right, we used to occasionally get correspondence. I have had phone calls. I have somebody who sent something to my house, which I was on vacation. I haven't had an opportunity to go through all of my mail yet and read it and share it. And if it's something, it's about, it said council president, my personal address. So once I open all my stuff and get through it, I will share it with everybody if they want it. I don't know what else to say other than the issues with IT. If you're getting deleted, are you getting the council? I don't know what you're not getting, because like you said, you don't know if you don't get it. But usually the fact that we wouldn't get an agenda by Friday would be a flag that something's not right. And I know this past week that Clerk Leonazio made a point to call everyone and tell them, get an option to either pick it up or get another email because of the IT orders. But we'll just try and move forward on it and try and communicate. Councilor Sapienza.
Yes, I noticed with the emails, sometimes we have this the system called Sophos, which is a antivirus, anti-spam system. I noticed a lot of messages, and I have found a couple of outside messages, say sent by a constituent somewhere, have ended up in that. So if you see those messages, you should open them up. It's actually, they may sequester like 3 or 4 messages at up to, or more at a time. And it's important to open those up to see what's in there before deleting those, because what may happen, some of it is indeed spam. It's just, from all over the place. And I have found at a couple of points, there was some correspondence from constituents in those, in that spam filter had gotten.
But
Point
they
of
were
clarification, these messages came from a city councilor or within the city, so it would have
Okay.
been from the city clerk or the city council president or a city councilor, which should not be spam.
Right, yeah. This was more something that came through from an outside person into the city.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so you brought up your concern. The mayor said some of the things. I've addressed what I can. I'll try and look into it. I will try to make sure that I share anything I get. I usually do. Follow up with the clerk to do the same thing. I think the mayor is working on the ADA coordination issues, and I think at that point, does anybody else have any other concerns? I don't have any correspondence to share, so that's the next item on the agenda. Motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.